Smart Grass is a project that's designed to build resilience in the Welsh landscape, and particularly in relation to grasslands. We know that grasslands as the cultural heritage of Wales is, it's iconic in that sense, and what we want to do is protect grasslands for the future so that farmers can sustain their livelihoods, but also that the landscape is providing a whole range of ecosystem services. And what we mean by that is that it continues to deliver grass for livestock production, it continues to store carbon in the ground, offsetting climate change. It also provides a rich habitat for biodiversity for all the plants and insects, and it helps to provide a natural sponge in the landscape so that it absorbs water when it rains, so trying to prevent flooding and runoff.
Very often scientists working on crop development look at stresses in isolation. They look at how resilient a crop is against droughts, how resilient they are against flooding, what's the impact of ozone. But we're looking at perennial crops. We're looking at crops that are expected to last over many years, and our climate, as everyone knows, is highly variable. You can get a whole season in a day. So we need to be able to make our crops resilient to all these different stresses. This is new. This is something that's quite very important, very practical, and we're looking at this on an individual plant basis, trying to adapt these plants to make them as resilient to multiple stresses. We grow grasses and clovers together. The clovers provide nitrogen to the field, so that's how they would normally be grown. But we've found some other benefits from them as well. So they increase the yield significantly. A grass-clover mixture is about 1.4 tonnes per hectare more than a grass on its own. But also it impacts on the soils, so it makes the soils more porous, more able to withstand flooding, more able to hold water effectively in the soil. Now, we work very closely with Bangor, and the aim is to use our grasses and our grass-clover mixtures actually in real field conditions in Bangor. And here we have some bins. These bins are filled with soil very typical to the soil that they will experience in Bangor. And we've got already made selections in terms of Festilorium, these ryegrass fescue hybrids, with or without clover. So we've got two options here and controls that we're testing. And the aim here is to flood these mesocosms and see how well they do. And from that, we will make our ultimate selection of what the grass and the grass-clover mixture we think is best for a trial in Bangor and the real field conditions.
This is our field trial, and we'll be using some of the grass mixtures developed down at Aberystwyth. So we have a number of plots here which we stressed last year with a flood, a drought, and then the combination of the flood and the drought. So in the middle we have some plots where we had flood water taken from the river, which gravity fed these tanks and topped up our flood plots for 8 weeks and left the grass underwater for 8 weeks, which then came off and we left them to recover for 4 weeks before a drought treatment started. So all the plots here which have frames on had roofs and were droughted for 8 weeks. Some of them also had already had the flood, but some were just a drought alone. And then we've been monitoring the impact on the system for the year following. And then this year, to try and get an indication of the best management strategies following such an event, we've been looking at the reseeding process to try and see if there's going to be more resilience with these seeds compared to what was looked at last year.
So these are the solar domes whereby ozone and temperature can be controlled and monitored, and the ozone can be contained within the dome. The actual gas itself is mixed with air and pumped in to the dome using this circular ring around the outside. My cores are taken from lowland Welsh pasture, and here you can see they've been subjected to different stresses from the environment. So some were droughted, some were flooded, and some were hit with high levels of ozone. You can see the effects of the different stresses on the grass cores. A good example is a flood core here with patchy regrowth after the stress has hit, and you can see some of the effects of the ozone on the plants themselves where they've died. So the whole point of this is to determine the tipping points at which irreversible damage is done to the ecosystem. So which is the most devastating stress? Is it drought? Is it flood? Is it ozone? And at what point does that stress become irreversibly damaged?
Farms in Wales and these grasslands are, it's part of Wales's rich tapestry. with the landscape. And we need to provide them with the tools to be able to protect their land against this future progressive climate change.
We have a very close association with farmers, so they come regularly to see what we're doing. We ask them what they need, because that's very important. We don't work in isolation.
We all have expertise in different areas, and bringing all that expertise together in plant physiology, climate science, soil science, agronomy, we can then make a really great job at solving this issue about how to protect the grasslands and the landscapes of Wales.